Hello, welcome to the All-Season Financial Advisor Solution Series. The title of this broadcast is called Got Cash, and this is Solution Series is in response to our clients who have asked us to help them with a more holistic view of their financial picture, not just their asset management. In this case, where there's a lot of individuals out there who have cash sitting in money market funds and otherwise and are wondering what to do about it, so this is our response and giving you some options. Just in terms of a quick agenda, I'm going to roll through some assumptions, major mistakes, and then we'll look at 4 different strategies. These are really individual buckets, options that you have in no particular order or priority, but you might choose to do all into one, or you can take some cash and put it into each of these strategies. Again, really not a priority, is 4 different options. So the basic assumptions are that if you're looking at this or listening to this, that you have cash somewhere, cash being in a bank, savings, checking, your mattress, a coffee can, an investment account of some sort like a money market fund. Otherwise, assuming you wouldn't be listening. We also assume that you don't want to outlive your available financial resources. Of course, no one wants to be on the street. But that our cash is part of our whole portfolio and that we need to make sure that as much as possible within reason that we can make it productive, helping us meet our goals overall. Another assumption is that cash will earn less than 3% over the next decade, and that is pretty common knowledge at this point, coming from the federal funds rate being 0, and how long it typically takes for federal funds rate to move higher, even in an inflation environment. But there really is no notable inflation in the system now, and from everything that we understand, it's going to take quite a while for us to push money market rates or checking account interest rates up anywhere north of 3%, probably north of a decade. Again, I'm speculating, but that's the way it looks now. Another assumption is that we don't really need more than 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a savings account, assuming that the rest of taxable money is available or some other taxable money is liquid. We also assume that borrowing is not free and borrowing must be paid back. And in other words, borrowed money is money that carries a cost to it. So we'll look at all of that in the context of this discussion. Major mistakes, the first one being sitting on a big pile of cash. The pile of cash we're just jokingly calling BPOC, the acronym for Big Pile of Cash. And there's lots of it out there. If you look at this chart from the Federal Reserve of money of 0 maturity, that means checking, savings, CDs, really anything that has a 0 maturity to it. A normal amount of cash in the system is about $8 trillion, which is a very big number anyway. But currently we're running at about $11.6 trillion, as you can see there on the right. So there's a lot more cash in the system now than normal, just by the nature of what's happened in the last 3 to 5 years. Other mistakes are financing stuff with borrowed money, stuff being mostly consumables, periodically a home. But I do see some of that happening and continue to see it happening. It's sort of an odd and illogical thing to me. I'll tell you why. Worrying about not making enough money or having enough money or not making enough income, and then at the same time having a huge balance in a checking account earning nothing. So again, somewhat illogical. There's definitely a sense out there of waiting. Like, I'm going to wait to get cash productive. I think that's an easy way out. I think there's plenty of opportunities, and I'll show you some of that. But waiting for a better time is a bit of a fool's game when there are options today. Looking at a big checking account that has a lot of zeros on it might make you feel wealthy, but wealthy people don't have lots of checking account money or savings account money. They have learned or been taught that keeping all assets productive is a smart thing to do, and very often even using leverage in addition to that. Final mistake is assuming that you'll only live as long as your parents. We are 3 or 4 generations now into higher, longer living standards, and you should also assume that you will live longer than your parents. Another way of saying it's important that your money work hard for you. So jumping into the first strategy, this is an obvious one. If we have a big bag of cash, it doesn't make sense to also carry on a lot of debt if you have that pile of cash. And the debt's not wrong if it's used strategically as leverage, but if you are also sitting on a lot of cash that's earning nothing, you're really just underwater on your cost of borrowing. So I call that a bad choice. And really if you just sort of want an example, mortgage even carries a borrowing cost of 3 to 5%, very, very low, but very real. We have cars that cost 3%, certainly on a financing basis, and then your credit card world, consumable credit card stuff at 15 to 18%. So again, if you're comparing any of these numbers to zero, they are negatives to your net worth on a rolling basis. Just to give you an example, if you were to even buy a house at $400,000, you put down $80,000 as a down payment. Let's say you take out a mortgage of $320,000, the balance, and you were the smartest person on earth, and you were able to secure a 30-year fixed mortgage at the lowest printed rate ever of 2.63%. The interest expense on that $320,000 mortgage accumulates to $160,000 after you have deducted the income tax deduction from it, and I used a 25% number there, 25% tax rate. So your $400,000 house very quickly becomes a $560,000 house, which is somewhat alarming if you look at it just from a value standpoint. It's about a 40% increase in the cost of your home if you were to accumulate all that interest expense. So no, even your house is not free, and this doesn't mean don't carry a mortgage, but it certainly can mean if you've got cash, paying down that mortgage aggressively, if you have no other plans for it, is certainly a viable strategy. The second strategy, or the second bucket, is to use your cash to reduce income tax expenses. So cash plus tax is also a bad choice. And just to give you an example there's plenty of things you can do. Again, we're using cash to invest in things, moving money from our left hand to our right hand. It doesn't go away. We're just repackaging it. And we can do so by 529 plans, which is really contributing to a plan and saving on state income taxes, up to $14,000 per parent per child, if that's where you are in your life. You can contribute to IRAs and 401ks, all things that reduce your federal income tax. And again, this money can come from cash. It can come out of your wages. Some people at the end of each year will forego their last couple paychecks and put it all into a 401k plan, and then use cash, as in your checking and savings account, for your monthly living expenses instead, just for that time period. And that way you fund your 401k, you max out your electives, which in that example is $17,500 a year. You shift money from your left hand to your right hand, and you pay a whole lot less income tax at tax time. Many of these things can happen still now. It's not April 15th. So look at that as an available option. Same principle applies to investing your after-tax money, as in taxable accounts. And they say that tax efficiency is one of the greatest contributors to a wealth effect, especially for tax accounts. This is just about being smart when you're investing taxable money and avoiding income tax. We offer 3 different stamp strategies. These are strategic tax-advantaged managed portfolios. One is called Freeway, another is Gainkeeper Annuity, and third is Worldwide Sectors. We generate after-tax returns or tax-efficient returns by way of long-term capital gain. We use index ETFs, muni bonds, and tax-deferred annuities. So again, that's about efficient investing of your taxable money. A third bucket is to reduce or fix your living expenses, and this is a bit odd. It's like spaving, where we're spending money to save money, but that's really what we're talking about. Taking checking account money, cutting your living expenses, perhaps permanently, or fixing them, and that's a good idea. So let me get a little more granular on that. If we look at where we spend our money, our living expenses, it's really those bottom three categories: food and beverage, transportation, housing, and shelter. So we talked about reducing your housing expense, specifically by reducing your mortgage. But there are other ways to reduce your housing expenses, and these are really about just being efficient. One example that we've done in our own home is to upgrade our HVAC system, our heating and ventilation in our house, from an old inefficient boiler, 76% efficient boiler, to a 98% efficient condenser boiler. And we saved about 25% on our heating bills in the process. So yeah, we took some cash and we upgraded our housing appliances, if you will, and we spend less money permanently on our heating. Same can go for transportation. People are doing that all the time. Buying into a more fuel-efficient vehicle, certainly an option, even going all the way to like an electric car. Cutting down on food and beverage, pretty tough unless you're on a major diet, but it can happen. Eating out less, things like that. So certainly using cash for any of those three things to cut your living expenses is absolutely an option. The final option is about making your cash productive, and this is probably the more traditional thing we all think of, like, what should I put my cash into to make more money, to make it more productive? It's also a good idea. I don't have a problem with it as long as it's sort of done safely. Most of the people who come to us with cash and don't really want to put it in the stock market find that our retirement income or our freeway high income models are very attractive. They're producing about a 6% rate of return, obviously better than zero, shown in the green line below under the Vanguard Money Market Fund. It's not a straight line return. You can see in the chart right in the middle section, we lost about 2% in 2008, followed by a 25–26% gain in 2009 right here. Pretty stable program. We use corporate bonds, floating rate funds, preferred securities, corporate investment grade bonds. We're even using master limited partnership there lightly because they're pretty much on the income side. But we're not using treasury bonds per se beyond a short-term trade. So it's not a treasury bond model. It's an income producing model by way of many different types of securities. And there's a lot of opportunity there now. There's a lot of opportunity in really any market. We can chase down these things that ride rising rates. We have things that make money when rates are falling. There are many, many different types of income-bearing securities. So again, these are options for your cash to make it more productive. I do understand the anxiety about chasing a market higher that's already moved up 170 some odd percent. I am not condoning putting money into pure stocks at this point from cash, nor would I recommend putting money into bonds as we've seen in the last 4 years, treasury bonds specifically. But as I said, there are hybrid income-bearing securities out there, certainly options for your cash, and we want to avoid doing what many people do, which is buying the wrong asset class at the wrong time. And I've shown this chart before to illustrate that does happen. Just also modern portfolio theory. If you're looking for sort of safer type investments, this is a great environment to run a fully diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, commodities, alternatives. A lot of different asset classes are moving higher now. Last year, 2013, was pretty purely a stock market year. Everything else lost money. This year is quite the opposite. Stocks are almost flat, while everything else, bonds, commodities, and alternatives, are all heading higher. So it's a great window of opportunity to get into a fully diversified portfolio without just adding stock market risk. Again, these are things to do with your cash. So these are different mixes of portfolios of equities, fixed income, and alternatives that produce desirable results, shown on the left-hand side, and a reduced risk structure shown on the horizontal axis. So just to wrap this up, cash is idle wealth. It can help you do those things. You know, really, if your money's sitting in a bank, you've got to have a small love affair with your bank, because they're taking your money, giving you nothing in the way of interest, turning around and lending it out at 4 and 5% and making a very handsome return on your cash. So unless you really have that love for a bank, you're really in the charity business if you've got cash in a bank at this point. Alternatively, I would recommend reducing your current debt expense. Use your cash to reduce your income tax expense. You can reduce your living expenses, as we talked about, or fix them by way of efficiency measures. Or, as we said, we can use our cash to produce more wealth, and I think we can do so safely. There's plenty of options here. So we're happy to help with any of that. If you have questions or you want to pursue any of these individually as a client, we certainly have the tools and the people to help you make those decisions, either by way of this type of information or direct conversations with our financial planner. So again, thank you for chiming in. This is our solution series. These happen about every 6 to 8 weeks, and we hope to have a continuing stream of these webcasts looking forward. So thank you for your time, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Bye-bye.